Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's cybersecurity session. Today, we're going to be talking about relationship scams. So we just kind of recently had Valentine's Day, so it's important to talk about these. So what are we going to cover today? We're going to first do an introduction to what relationship scams are, and then we're going to talk about three specific types of relationship scams. So the grandchild scam, romance scams, and military imposter scams. These are the three we're going to be focusing on here. And then we're going to go over what the signs are of a relationship scam, what to do if you suspect a relationship scam, and how to protect yourself from being a target of a relationship scam in the future. And then we'll end obviously with a Q&A and conclusion there. So that's what we got going on today. So first of all, what are relationship scams? So relationship scams involve a scammer posing as a friend or a family member, maybe a romantic interest or other trustworthy figure in order to gain a person's trust and extract money from them. Now, according to the US FBI, Americans have lost over $1 billion to romance scams this past year alone. So that does make up a large portion of these relationship scams. But there's also other types of relationship scams, and generally we can classify a lot of these into also what's known as confidence frauds. So again, someone gains your confidence and then tricks you into handing over money to pay for a medical bill or whatever it may be. And this includes things like the grandparent scams. And this has lost adults over the age of 60 approximately $432 million in 2021. So obviously, these scams are huge money-making opportunities for scammers. So that is why it's all the more important for you to understand how you can protect yourself. So why are older adults targeted in particular from these scams? So there's a few reasons. One of the big ones is that older adults who are retired and have saved for retirement might have more money saved and available kind of liquid based on their retirement savings. So, they have a lot to take. Another thing is that they may tend to be more trusting, especially when it comes to over the phone or over the computer type scams. And that might just come from not being as knowledgeable from the scams. Obviously, you're getting this knowledge now, so that won't be you, but that can also be a reason why. Another reason might be that they are more likely to be socially isolated. So especially when it comes to these confidence frauds, to relationship or romance scams, they might be more vulnerable. Anyone who is, maybe socially isolated or lonely is going to be more vulnerable when someone is coming at them with an approach of, romance or love or as a family member, right? So that social isolation can play a key part in their vulnerability. And then lastly, age-related cognitive decline and hearing loss may also play a role in this, especially, if this is a scam that's say the grandparent scam, which we'll get into over the phone. Someone poses your grandchild. Maybe your hearing is not what it used to be. And, maybe they don't sound completely like your grandchild, but you chalk it up to bad hearing or else something like that. So that is another reason why older adults might be more vulnerable. Obviously, this isn't going to be you, though, because we're going to go through how you can spot these and what you can do so that you are not vulnerable to these scams. All right. So once again, different types of relationship scams we are going to be covering: grandparent scams, romance scams, and military impersonation scams. We're going to talk a bit now about what each one of these looks like. So the grandparent scam. So the grandparent scam is a type of social engineering attack in which fraudsters will claim to be the victim's grandchild or claim to be someone else claiming the victim's grandchild is in trouble. They may pretend to be the police and call and say their grandchild has been in an accident or involved in a crime, something like that. Scammers will then ask their targets to take out large sums of money or make a wire transfer, something like that, to save their grandchild. The scammer might even use or will even use the real name of the victim's grandchild, and they may also use other identifying information that they can find online, like on social media, to make the scam more believable. In some cases, too, the fraudster will even pretend to be, other members of the family, so family friend, nephew, niece, something like that. And this may work better if the person doesn't have a grandchild at all. So they may pretend to be other members of family or family friends. And while this is commonly called the grandchild scam, obviously it can take different forms, as we just discussed. So something to be looking out for. Now, from 2015 to 2020, more than 91,000 reports of crooks posing as a relative or a friend of the victim were reported to the FTC. So again, this is super common. And I'm sure people on here today have received these calls themselves. So this happens a lot. So what we're going to have now is we're going to watch a quick video on someone who was affected by a grandparent scam, just to see, how it can happen and what the result is.
They were very convincing.
Very convincing.
Eileen Lawson lost her self-confidence with a phone call.
Hello.
Scammers convinced Eileen her granddaughter away at university had been in a car crash, said she was in legal trouble because of what police had found.
The loaded gun in the trunk.
It was all a lie. They told Eileen she needed to deliver $10,000 in an envelope with a series of letters and numbers on the outside, money for a bond to get her granddaughter released from custody.
I was freaking out.
Like a kidnapper's call, Eileen was instructed to tell no one, including her 2 sons.
What's happening? And I was really scared.
The grandparent scam is booming, making headlines across Canada, profitable because it preys on fear. Eileen left her apartment immediately after getting off the phone, went downstairs to her car, and drove to the Royal Bank, which gave her the first $5,000. She went to TD next to get the other $5,000. Eileen, had you ever gone to that bank and asked for thousands of dollars in cash before?
Never, none of those banks.
Under a Canadian bank code of conduct, banks agree to look out for seniors, to ask questions, to try to prevent this kind of fraud. But that didn't happen in this case. TD Bank representative told Global News they understand how distressing this must have been. Royal Bank said, "We are taking this matter seriously." Eileen handed the $10,000 cash to a man who showed up in a car outside her apartment, terrified of what he might do. They didn't just steal your money, they stole your trust and your confidence.
It's the worst trauma that I've ever experienced in my life. And I started questioning myself, why me, and doubting myself.
2 weeks after Global News calls to the banks, TD put $5,000 back in Eileen's account as a goodwill gesture. Then the Royal Bank did the same. She's now got all her money back. Eileen says she still has nightmares about that day in late September and wants to warn others.
I want to protect other women, Maybe that's my mission.
Sean O'Shea, Global News.
Now, obviously, that was a pretty good case scenario of what might happen in a situation like this, right? She was able to recover all of her money, but there was still, a traumatic event that happened there. And it can be really traumatic. I think we often talk a lot about the financial losses of these attacks, but the actual emotional impact that they can have on us, they're really scary. They're very upsetting. To be taken advantage of like that is very much real. So just wanted to show that. Moving on, we're now going to talk about romance scams. So romance scams occur when fraudsters will create fake personas and pretend to have a romantic interest in someone online. They'll use manipulation tactics to create a feeling of mutual trust, while aiming with their end aim to get money out of their victims. Romance scams usually occur or start on dating apps, online forums, and social media sites. These are the main kind of grounds for where these start. Obviously, they can start other places, but these are really the most popular places for them to take off from. And while these attacks can affect anybody, there are certain vulnerable populations, often widows or divorcees. A scammer will try to make them feel special in order to develop a relationship really quickly. So we're, again, seeing these scammers prey on people who are already vulnerable due to extenuating circumstances. So this is the romance scam. We're going to see a quick video on romance scams like we did with the grandparent scam.
My name is Glenda and I'm 81 years old. In 2014, I met the love of my life online, and he told me that he was a U.S. citizen and was working in Nigeria. He asked me for money to help with his business and help leave Nigeria. Then my love had people send me electronics like cell phones so I could pawn them and send him the money. When I couldn't get the money that he wanted, he asked me to open personal and business bank accounts. Since 2015, bank employees, local police officers, and federal agents told me that my love was a scam and that I needed to stop or I could go to jail. I didn't listen to anyone else but my love, the love I've never seen nor spoken to. Now I don't have a choice of whom I'll listen to. On November the 2nd, 2021, I pled guilty to 2 federal felonies. I'll be listening to the judge now.
And as we saw with this particular case, this wasn't just about extracting money from the victim themselves, but turning this victim into a money mule. So using a victim to actually perpetrate crimes, to launder money. So these things can get pretty deep, especially if people can form these really strong bonds with their victims through this fake persona. And it can be really dangerous because at this point, there was nothing anyone could say to this victim, family or police or otherwise, to convince her to stop contact with this person. So it can really take a strong hold on people. And I think, with something like this, it's easy enough to go, that couldn't be me. That's ridiculous. But you never know, especially, if you find yourself in a vulnerable situation. So it's something to always be on the lookout for. And again, with this in particular, not just for yourself, but for others in your life who you feel or think might be particularly vulnerable to these attacks. And lastly, we're going to talk about military imposter scams. So military imposter scams are kind of a subset often of romance scams. And in these scams, scammers will pretend to be members of the military and they take advantage of the trust in that institution. They'll identify vulnerable targets. And usually these people or victims are people who show support for the military, either through their social profiles or through a Facebook group or donating to veterans charities. Now, in these scams, they'll obviously escalate the relationship quickly like they would a normal relationship scam. They'll use a technique in this and in romance scams called love bombing, which they shower you with compliments and words of affirmation really quickly and a lot very early on to pull you in, say they love you really quickly, and just basically try to move things along as quick as possible. Now, in these particular scams, they have certain, excuses they'll make that can kind of be a telltale sign or a red flag. So in romance scams in general, the person will never want to meet in person. Sometimes they won't want to be seen on video call, any of these things, and they'll have a handful of excuses. The same will go for this person, but they'll take advantage of the average person's ignorance of military protocol, and they'll use these excuses. So these usually mask red flags. So things like saying that they can't video call because it's against protocol. The military doesn't stop service members from using video chat. So that is not a real excuse. That is a made up rule. And oftentimes members of special forces units most likely aren't on dating sites while deployed. And if they're in your area with those it just wouldn't really make sense. So using logic there, those are two major red flags with these in particular. We're going to watch a quick video here, and this is actually of an Army veteran who had his image stolen, and then that image was used and proliferated to make hundreds, if not thousands, of fake profiles in order to perpetrate these scams. So he had nothing to do with it, but his images were taken and used to steal money from people.
He might appear in your inbox as a handsome Army medic serving on a peacekeeping mission overseas, and he might even tell you about life back home on his farm.
You can make up a lot of good stories with a guy in a uniform, a kid with a horse.
But the man in the pictures, Brian Denny, isn't the same person behind the keyboard.
I went on Facebook and typed in my name, and there were double digits in fake accounts that came up.
He's the victim of a bizarre case of identity theft. His pictures plastered across dozens of social media platforms.
Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, Plenty of Fish, Tinder, and Truly Chinese, just to name a few. That's where I'm
Even a Chinese site.
Apparently.
A retired colonel from the U.S. Army.
Hi, I'm Lieutenant Colonel Brian Denny.
Brian has found himself immersed in the shady world of online romance fraud when he discovered that his photos had been stolen and used to lure women from all over the globe into thinking they were in a relationship with him.
When did you first become aware that your identity had been stolen?
I got a note on LinkedIn saying, I've been talking with someone who says they're you. She said, well, she met me through social media, and this guy she had sent him money for airline tickets.
Did he come and visit?
He did not.
It didn't take long for Brian to realize this was more than just a one-off.
There's been over 3,000 false accounts just on Facebook alone.
More than 3,000.
That's correct.
Soon, the messages were pouring in on Brian's real social media profiles.
Hi, I am a doctor from Kosovo, and I think I have been scammed.
I'm sorry to disturb you, but I want to find out if you're real.
Hello? Someone got pictures of you.
And 2.5 years later, they haven't stopped.
You end up breaking up with someone every week. And I say breaking up with them because they've committed not just emotionally, but committed financially. It really becomes overwhelming. Just be the bearer of bad news all the time for folks.
The real Brian Denny is a husband, a father, and a proud veteran.
I'd like to say hi to all our friends and families and supporters.
Someone who has spent a lifetime fighting for others.
I love you guys. I'll be home soon.
The fake Brian Denny? Well, he could be anyone.
I've been everybody from Frank Smith to Scott Glenn to Ricardo Montalban. I mean, you name it, there's been a fake profile built in. Sergeant, Colonel, Major. I went to West Point, VMI, and I am leading humanitarian assistance mission in Iraq, Afghanistan. I'm in all those places doing all those things.
How much money has been taken from these various women in your name?
There's been a couple of 100,000. Probably my biggest contributors have been from Australia, where the total for 3 ladies is pretty close to 200,000 alone.
Internet crime is a big business, but unlike many criminal enterprises online, the world of romance scamming doesn't exist on the fringes of the dark web.
Get your military injury pics, photos, any format at low cost.
Facebook groups like these ones trafficking stolen information out in the open.
Free fake profiles so you look legit and European.
And on community forums, which actually teach people how to create fake profiles.
Instagram account for sale, 950 plus followers.
And lure clients, even facilitate money laundering.
Who can load check?
These posts are really bold. I mean, they put out on sites, they don't think they're going to be caught, clearly. But our take on that is, yes, you will.
Amy Hess works at the Criminal Cyber Response and Services branch of the FBI. She says as social media has become more popular, these cases, called confidence frauds, have become much more prevalent.
Are they committing any kind of crime by doing this?
As soon as we can connect them to actual crime, yes, they are and have been targets of our investigations.
Is it hard to chase?
It is. Sometimes it's a very complex fraud. There's a criminal network operating, so there's multiple people. Sometimes they have the victim be part of that, either in a witting or unwitting capacity, be part of that network because they're moving money for them.
Money laundering.
Yes.
Is this a multi-million-dollar business, billion-dollar business?
I would say with confidence it's in the billions of dollars. Each one of those is a person. Each one of those is a victim. Those are people's life savings.
So this is where things get complicated, because oftentimes when people are doing these scams, they're not using stock images or images that would maybe ring to you as immediately false or, not real. They are usually taking real people's images, like this information, details about their lives, and using them, changing a few small details to use them in these frauds. So with any of these frauds, a great thing you can do if you do have any images of these people, we'll talk a bit more about this later, is reverse image searching their pictures. So you can put their picture that sent you into Google and find it elsewhere on the internet and see if there's other profiles or names associated with it. Because this is a super common technique they'll use. And a simple Google search often will show you dozens of profiles or other places where you could find this image and disprove this person's existence, basically. All right, so we talked a bit about how these scams work, but let's now talk about how to spot them. So we'll have some things that we'll kind of go over again. We'll go into a bit more detail here. It might be a great grandparent scam if you were receiving an unsolicited call or email claiming that a grandchild or loved one is in danger, either from someone claiming to be the grandchild or from someone claiming to be a hospital, police officer, or a lawyer involved with the grandchild. Now, if it is a phone call, it's often going to be late at night or early in the morning. This is an intentional tactic. They want to call you when you might be groggy and not really thinking clearly. So late at night or early in the morning. Usually the person claims to be traveling in a foreign country and has gotten into a bad situation, like being arrested for drugs, getting in a car accident, or being mugged, and they need money wired to them ASAP. Urgency is also key in spotting these. One of the main things they will do, though, is they will tell you not to tell their parents, spouse, or friends. They will tell you not to tell anyone. Again, because as soon as you go and ask someone or tell someone, they're going to say, that person's not in Mexico right now. That's a lie, right? So they don't want you to disprove their claims of what's happening. So they'll tell you not to tell other people. The caller asks for money or cash or gifts, and they might ask for it in odd ways. So they might send an Uber to pick up cash. They might ask for gift cards, wire transfers, or for you to buy into crypto so that they can get money. This is so it's not as traceable and they can get it from you quicker, and so you can't get it back. Oftentimes, too, the caller will try to stop you from getting off the phone or threaten you if you try to verify the information. So again, if you try to talk to someone else or tell you. So if they're threatening you when you're saying, let me go call this person, maybe they can help you better, that is another red flag and sign. And again, we have to emphasize these tactics to make you act quickly. So using deception, intimidation, or coercion to force you to act quickly. They do not want you to think, right? The faster they can get it out of you, the better chance they have of you not realizing that you're being scammed. So these are some things to look out for, that rushing to be one, and any of these kind of common signs of a grandparent scam. All right. Now, what do you do if you suspect a grandparent scam? So say you receive one of these phone calls. Oh, I want to go back actually and say one other thing. If it is a phone number that you feel you recognize that is in fact the correct phone number of, say, your grandchild or someone, don't use this as a sign that this is a real call. Scammers can mask phone numbers and make it look like a different phone number, so they can call and make it look like your grandchild's phone number or something close to it. So don't use this as a reason that this is legitimate. Don't trust what you see on your caller ID as the name, because they can make that pose as anything. So that is not a reason to think this is legitimate. I just wanted to point that out in here, especially. All right. Now, what did you do if you suspect a grandparent scam? If you receive a call like this, obviously don't wire money or give the caller any information, right? You don't want to give them any fodder for getting access to any of your accounts or anything. So don't give or say anything. Just hang up, call your grandchild or another family member to find out what's really going on. If they're your grandchild and they're calling you, you should be able to call them back and have them pick up and verify the information or call another family member. This is something they are not going to want you to do. So if you say, I'm going to call your mom, you should know right away by the way they react in the anger and threatening that this is a scam. And then once you get off the phone, because that's really the only thing you can do, just hang up, is report the scam to your local police, the FTC if you're in the US, or the Anti-Fraud Center if you're in Canada. Now let's talk about how to spot a romance scam. So we talked a bit about these things again, but it might be a romance scam if the scammer moves things quickly. So they'll be quick to call it love. They'll do what we call love bombing. So again, showering you with compliments, praise, really just trying to, get you to believe that they're obsessed with you right away. They'll then potentially suggest that you move off the dating app or the social media app that you've started on. So they'll suggest moving to messaging apps like Snapchat, WhatsApp, or Telegram. So they'll move things off onto a more kind of private messaging app. Then once they kind of get through this first stage, and again, they'll try to move this along quickly so that they can get their money quicker, they'll start to ask for things. Once they have your trust, the scammers will create elaborate scenarios and ask for financial help to get them out of trouble by sending cash or gift cards or investing in cryptocurrency schemes. They may also ask for money because, they recently ran into financial troubles and they really want to come see you, but the plane tickets are expensive and they need money for the plane tickets, but they never actually end up coming. And another disastrous situation actually came up, which prevented them from coming, and they in fact need more money. So this is kind of how they'll work it out, which brings us to our next point. They will never meet you in person, and they will not appear on video chat. Now, again, there are cases in which people will go as far as to meet people in person in video chat. These are extreme cases, but oftentimes the most basic version of this scam involves them not meeting you in person and not video chatting with you. Sometimes on the phone, but basically limiting how much you can see them, because then you'll see that they're not the person they said they are. The scammers also will often propose marriage or offer to meet in person, but again, they'll always have an excuse. So none of these things will ever actually come to fruition. And the scam will continue as long as they can get something out of you. So if you think, oh, they got my money out of me and now they're done. So if they're continuing to do this, then maybe that means it is real. They'll just keep going as long as they can get money out of you. The goal of this is to get really as much out of you as they can, but their goals can vary. So obviously sometimes the goal is to get you to give money, but sometimes the goal is to get you to divulge personal information and then make you the victim of identity theft. So get as much information about you as possible. So look out for what they're asking. Are they asking too many questions, questions that seem unusual? And they'll continue it on for months. And again, as we talked about before, this may not just be asking you for money directly, but it could be a situation where they make you into a money mule, getting you to basically launder money for them to keep their hands clean. Now, what to do if you suspect a romance scam? So what to do if you are the target? So stop all contact immediately. This is going to be the same starting point for everything. Stop contact immediately. This will keep you safe, but also, this is a great sign to test the person. If you stop contact immediately or lessen it, you'll see how they react, and often it will be desperate. It might be threatening. They'll just want you to come back immediately. They'll feel their grip loosening, and this will scare them. So you'll see a reaction from that, and it's a good thing to kind of test and see. They won't have a normal, reaction. They'll freak out. The next thing you can do is talk to someone you trust and describe what's going on. Again, when it comes to romance, we can often have blinders on. So it's really important to get a second opinion on these things and talk to someone that you trust. And if you are at this point pretty certain that it is a scam, report it to local law enforcement and submit a fraud complaint with the FTC or Anti-Fraud Center. I think do this at whatever stage you're at, because it's important that they are aware of the scams that are happening, whether they resulted in lost funds or didn't, so they have more information on, who's perpetrating these scams and how they can stop them in the future. And one thing to do too, with this in particular, especially if it's online and you are chatting, is to document the conversation. So take screenshots of everything that's being said. Again, so when you submit the fraud complaint, you have a lot of evidence to give over and stuff they can work off of. So document your conversations is another big one. Screenshot your chats before the profile is deleted and they disappear. What to do if you suspect a romance scam and it's not you that's being scammed, but your loved one is targeted. The main thing we can do here to protect others is take action before it happens. Check in with your loved ones who may be lonely or isolated, so people who might be vulnerable, and then talk to vulnerable loved ones about how they can protect themselves. Give them the tools to spot these things before they happen, before it's too late and they get so swept up that they can't see a way out. And if this is a comfortable thing, you can also talk to them about account monitoring. Obviously, this might be overstepping for some people, so it may not be an option, but especially if someone is a bit more vulnerable, maybe showing early signs of cognitive decline, you may want to consider this just as a safety measure to protect them. Now, if you suspect they are already being scammed, talk to them about it and be gentle. Don't shame or embarrass them. This can be a super embarrassing and shameful thing to go through, and people might not want to talk about it. But also you have to remember that if they are in the midst of a scam, they have an emotional connection to this person. They may feel they're in love with this person. I feel like we all maybe know a situation where we've had a friend or loved one who's in a relationship that we could see was not good for them, but they didn't see it yet. It's hard to sometimes talk to those people. So you have to be gentle, be understanding, and just try to voice your concerns in a way that doesn't make them in the wrong, that it's not, their fault. Try to uplift them when you're talking to them about this, rather than, again, shaming or embarrassing them. And you can make suggestions, if it's maybe too much to ask them to cut it off right away, because they'll, then cut you out, because you have to remember the person on the other side might be saying the same thing about you. If they go back to them and say, my child thinks I should break up with you, they'll say, well, your child doesn't want your happiness, they're selfish, right? All these things to try to make you the actual villain here. So try to make suggestions that might be more palatable at first. So suggest they slow things down, or just cut off communication for a day or two and see how the person reacts. Because again, we know when we cut off communication or slow things down, these scammers tend to freak out and show their true colors. So that might be a way to show them the light in the situation. All right, let's now talk about how to spot a military imposter scam. So there's a couple of common elements that we might see across these scams, or common scenarios or stories that someone who is executing a military imposter scam might use. So it might be a scam if they use common phrases or stories such as that they're on a peacekeeping mission. That is often the story that's told. Obviously, it might not be every time, but often they'll say that they're on a peacekeeping missions overseas. They'll say things like they're looking for an honest woman or man. They might tell you that their parents, wife, or husband are deceased, again, posing themselves as more vulnerable in order to make you feel as if you are less vulnerable. They also may claim to have children who are being looked after by a nanny or guardian, and this will serve them well when it comes back up after, if they have to ask money for these sort of things. So they may say stuff like that. They will, like in any romance scam, move things along very quickly and profess love pretty much immediately or very soon after first speaking with you. And again, they may be claiming to be U.S. military, but there may be issues with their spelling or grammar wouldn't be what you expected. If you do have the opportunity to talk on the phone with them, potentially they'll have an accent. And this is because a lot of these attacks might not be coming from within, say, the US. So these people may not actually be native English speakers. And that might be reflected in how they communicate with you. Now, they will also ask for money, and they might give some general sort of excuses or reasons they need money. These are some common ones. Again, they'll say that they can't access their bank account because they're overseas on a mission or something. They may ask for you to help them get money so they can get back into the US, or so that they can go on leave, or so that they can retire. They may make up a story that their commanding officer is extorting them, demanding money from them. They may say that they need money to pay for their children or medical procedures, bringing it back to their initial story. So they'll set up this whole scenario in a way, right, making themselves seem one, trustworthy, but also vulnerable in themselves. They have children they're looking after, they are a widow, reasons that you would view them as vulnerable, so that it makes it easier for when they ask you for money for them to come up with these excuses. So they'll start to lay the groundwork pretty early on these. And oftentimes, a lot of money may have to do with traveling or getting to seeing you. Again, though, they'll never see you. They'll say things like they can't video chat for security reasons. As we've already discussed, that is not real. There's nothing that stops military personnel from using video calling. Another thing to spot in your correspondences with them, say they're emailing you, is that they're using a personal email address and not a military one. So if they're using a Gmail or Yahoo, rather than using their work email, so their military one. Their social media accounts might be sparse, so there might not be a huge amount of information on them. So kind of just bare bones, some pictures, a bit of information, not a ton of friends, not a ton of history on those. So they appear newer. And they, like in a lot of romance scams, again, will want to quickly move conversations off a dating app, off a social media profile, onto a private messaging app like WhatsApp or text or Telegram or something like that. So very similar to just a regular romance scam, adding that extra layer of the military component of it to give kind of more specified excuses. And again, playing on the ignorance of the, lay person of their knowledge of military protocol. So always using military protocol as an excuse for why they can't see you, talk to you, or why they're having troubles. Now, what do you do if you suspect a military imposter scam? Going to be the same thing that we've done with all of these. Again, stop communication immediately. Talk to someone you trust and describe what's going on. Get their opinion, feedback on it. As with the other ones too, document your conversations with them by taking screenshots so that you can use that to provide as proof or hand it over when you make your report, and report to local law enforcement, and definitely to report a fraud complaint with the FTC in the US or Anti-Fraud Center in Canada. Again, they'll want to know this information. With all of this, though, there are some commonalities across the board, as you probably already noticed, in terms of how these operate, but also how you should deal with them. So here's a bit of a relationship scam rule book for you. So if you suspect that someone is a scammer or not who they claim to be, we recommend doing the following. As we've already said, cease all communication. Document your conversations. If you have a bad feeling about it, do those things first. Make sure you have all the proof you can in case something goes wrong. Never send money to people you meet online, ever, unless you've met them in person. And even in those cases, be careful, but definitely if you've never met them in person, or if you just met them online, never send them money. Do not invest in crypto schemes. This is the latest kind of thing and way they're asking for money. So if that comes up, that's an immediate red flag there. Keep your eyes out for money mule scams. So again, we talk a bit less about this when we talk about these scams. We talk about people, having money directly taken from them. We don't often talk about how victims of these scams can then in themselves be turned and used as criminal assets. So doing the laundering for the person, committing crimes on behalf of the person they think they're in a relationship with. So keep an eye out for that, about what people are asking you to do. Never give people your personal information. If questions start to get too much or too specific about, addresses, social security number, any of that. Be wary of that, because again, money is not always the sole or main thing people are after. Sometimes they're after your information so that they can make you the victim of a identity theft or scam. Never provide your personal phone number or email. If you're going to, when you meet someone online, you can come up with like a dummy email to use, again, to keep it separate from all of your regular accounts, all of your regular information. Don't use your personal everyday use email. And as I said, kind of always pay attention to people asking too many questions, but also pay attention to people, giving you too much attention anyway, right off the bat, right? If someone is asking a lot of questions or giving a lot of compliments, and they don't really know you yet, think twice about what their motivation might be. Now, beyond knowing how to spot scams in the moment and what to do with them in the moment, there's already also ways you can protect yourself from relationship scams ahead of time. So make yourself less vulnerable to being the target of one of them. So obviously social media sites and dating sites can be fun, but it is important to find a balance between sharing and safety. So you don't want to overshare on these platforms, give people fodder to basically know things about you and find weaknesses in how they can perform these scams on you. So on social media, set the highest privacy settings so people can't see your personal information. Use unique photos on dating apps and social media. So don't use the same photos on social media as you have on your dating apps, because this makes it easier for scammers to find you, right? So they may be able to see your photo on a dating app, plug it into a reverse image search on Google, find your profile, find out information about you, and then use that information to manipulate you, right? To feel like they really get you or know you, because they already know this information about you that they found through your social media profiles, right? Maybe they see on your social media profile that you have a dog, and then, then they can make up a fake dog they have, and they can use that as a way to connect with you straight out of the gate, right? Just not giving away too much information. Again, make those privacy settings high, but also refrain from giving out too much personal information online in general, things that people can use as fodder. And if you are messaging someone through social media or dating apps, keep the messages on the app for as long as possible so that you are protected. Once you move into a private messaging app, you may be less secure there. Now, the next thing you can do is do your research and confirm the details with someone you trust. So if you feel a connection with someone or get an unsolicited message or call, just do a quick Google search of their photos and name. Look for mismatched photos and names. Again, if you do a reverse image search, you may find the same photos associated with the profile of someone with a different name, and that is a red flag right there. And in case it is a grandparent scam and you're getting a call a family member who may know what's really going on and verify the truth. Always do double checks. Even if you're sure it's not a scam, do it. People do this all the time. It's not overstepping. You just want to verify the information of the person you're meeting online is real. Search their names on social media. So go on Facebook, Instagram, wherever you have profiles, and search their name. Do other multiple profiles. They may be the same name with many profiles, same photos they're using to scam different people, or small variations on their name. And do they all use the same photos or variations of them? And then one last thing you can do, really easy, Google the name and scam on Google. If someone else has been scammed using this fake identity, you may be able to find it on places like Reddit or Twitter or other sites where people are having conversations, and see if there's other experiences of people being scammed by people with the same name or going by the same alias. And always be skeptical and be careful. Meeting people offline, maybe in a public place at first, is always the first step towards trust. Again, if you're not able to, or the person's not willing to meet you in person, a red flag, and you should be skeptical of that. Be very careful about doing any favors or trusting a person too much at first if you haven't met them in real life. If they start talking about money, needing help, or having some kind of medical emergency, you should take that as a red flag. Use your gut. If it seems off, it's off. but also do your research, right? Sometimes we can be tricked, especially by our heart. So do your research, check in with other people who may not have more information, or use Google or the internet as your tool. Lastly, secure your accounts. So, right, in the case that you do give up details that you shouldn't have to someone, you need to make sure that your accounts are secure. So even if you accidentally give up details to a relationship scammer, you can take these preventative measures to protect your sensitive accounts. Use a really great password, a password manager, and set up two-factor authentication on all your accounts. Talked a lot about that in our last session, Cybersecurity 101. So if you want to go check that out to get tips on that, you should. Sign up for credit monitoring to alert you if anyone has gained access to your financial information. That being said, check your statements regularly so you know if anything is up right away and you can deal with it. Put blocks on your accounts. And you can consider signing up for something like Aura's identity theft program, protection program. Aura monitors your credit and your online financial accounts for signs of fraud. So if a scammer is trying to steal your money, Aura can alert you so you can shut them down and protect your finances. There are tools out there to help you stay safe and information to help you stay safe. Aura has a lot of those tools. They also have a wealth of information. So do check them out because they can give you a lot of help and peace of mind. And really, it's very important that you have some peace of mind in this situation. All right, so that's it for today. If you do have any questions about this topic, you can always call Cyber Seniors toll free at 844-217-3057, or you can visit us online at cyberseniors.org. And we're happy to help you out with any questions that you might have on the topic or anything else tech related or cybersecurity related.